Hello. Today's video chat is about the office of Congress. I'm going to discuss a variety of things related to Congress today, their power, the role of the institution, etc. First thing to talk about the House and Senate. To be a member of the House of Representatives, there are only 3 constitutional qualifications. You have to be at least 25 years old. You have to be a citizen of the United States for at least 7 years. And you have to live in the state. For the Senate, it's not that much tougher. You have to be at least 30 years old. You have to be a citizen for at least 9 years and also live in the state. Now, 25 and 30 may seem relatively young, but when the Constitution was written, 25 and 30 were close to middle age and life expectancy was much lower. When it comes to the differences between the House and Senate, I'll kind of explain them briefly. For the House, you have 435 members. You don't have as many formal rules. You serve 2-year terms in the House. And most House members are more unknown than known as compared to the United States Senate. The Senate, more formal rules. 100 members of the Senate. They serve 6-year terms. And the situation with all of Congress is there are no term limits, so they can run for as many terms as they care to run for. One of the things about Congress is a word you often hear about called bipartisanship. Bipartisanship, by meaning two, is when really the House and Senate, along with the administration, work together to solve problems. The problem is most people only want bipartisanship when they're in the minority, hoping to get a voice. Article 1 of the Constitution outlines the powers of Congress. And if you look at the Constitution, it is the longest part of the Constitution, Article 1. Few other things about the role of Congress. Members of Congress do not reflect their constituents when you think of the average things. Most members of Congress, on average, are more likely to be white, more likely to be male, more likely to be better educated than the average citizen. They also say in most surveys that most members of Congress usually acknowledge a religious affiliation, whereas the part of society in the United States does not do that. A noted political scientist, Richard Fenno, once talked about Congress and said that really members of Congress have 3 goals. The goal is to get reelected. The second goal is to gain power. And the third goal is to make good public policy. Those are important goals for any member of Congress. You want to be able to do all those things to help you do all those things. By gaining power, it helps you get reelected. By making good public policy, it helps you gain power. And those are very important elements when thinking about the role of Congress. Members of Congress, on average, receive almost 300 million emails a year and thousands of letters. And you need really a good legislative staff to keep up with all that stuff. One thing about being a member of Congress, being the incumbent, has a great many advantages. Incumbency, the current office holder. For the House, 90% of all incumbents get reelected. For the Senate, it's about 70%. And the reason incumbents get reelected, it's kind of like the expression they used to use in the TV show Cheers. It's a name you know. Everyone knows that person. When it's someone running against another person and everyone knows who Congressman X is, but no one's sure about his opponent, people will vote for Congressman X because they'll say, I know who they are and I fear the unknown. Or I know who they are, they've done a good job, or I know who they are and they haven't been arrested, so they will keep voting for them in office. The other thing is, usually incumbents raise more money and have more campaign contributions. So incumbency has that powerful advantage too. And members of Congress will raise money all the time to prevent someone from running against them. Because if you have an idea in your head, I want to run for Congress and I'm going to run against my congressman. Well, if your congressman already has $2 million in the bank, you're going to need at least $2 million to be competitive against him. And where are you going to get $2 million from? That can be very difficult. For most people, they don't really challenge members of Congress because of the amount of money you really need to raise to make your point. For members of Congress, working with the party is important in order to get things done. though at times you have various freelancers out there who will do their own thing. One thing about Congress and the area of congressional districts. Districts change, in part due to the United States Census, and in part due to things like gerrymandering, redistricting in the legislative process. Every 10 years, legislative districts have to be redrawn. And they're drawn by the state legislatures or sometimes state commissions. And they're drawn sometimes in a way to punish a member of Congress or to help ensure that that member of Congress does not lose re-election. Redistricting has been a very controversial thing. There's been Supreme Court cases over the last several years related to this topic. And members of Congress, they want to get reelected. And they want to be in a district that helps them get reelected. If you are a conservative, you don't want to be in a district with too many liberal voters, and vice versa. And those things are important. When it comes to the House and Senate, leadership's important. The leader of the House is the Speaker of the House, and that role is actually provided for in the Constitution. You do not have to be a member of the House to be the Speaker, but traditionally that is what is done. Usually the Speaker is the person who is the leader of the majority party in Congress. After that, you have the House Minority Leader and the House Majority Leader, the leaders of both major political parties. Then you have House Whips. Whips are people, and I always like to use this expression, they whip the members in the shape. They rally the party on various legislative and procedural votes. One of the most important elements for leadership when it comes to Congress, besides roles like deputy whips who help out, is committee chairpersons. This goes for the House and Senate. They often refer to the committee chairpersons as the College of Cardinals. These are the people that elect the Pope. And if you want a legislation to pass, the committee chairperson has an enormous amount of power to make sure your legislation passes and sees the light of day, or they can kill your legislation and it will go nowhere. For the Senate leadership, the top leader is the President pro tem of the Senate. It's a ceremonial role. Usually the President pro tem of the Senate is the person who has the most seniority of the majority party in the Senate. The other two major leaders are the Senate Majority Leader and the Senate Minority Leader, the leaders of both their major political parties in Congress. They also have whips, deputy whips, and they also have the power of committee chairpersons to either make legislation go fast or make it go very slow. Many of you have watched the video probably over the years, Schoolhouse Rock, How a Bill Becomes a Law. In many ways, the video is accurate. Anyone can introduce legislation. Obviously, you want to introduce legislation that's actually going to pass and have an effect on it. For the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to start legislation in the House. It goes to the House. It gets a bill number. It gets assigned to a committee. Here's one thing about legislation. Once a bill gets out of committee, the chance of it passing is high, which is a good thing. But the thing is, committees get hundreds of pieces of legislation every year. So that can kind of make it difficult. In a committee, the committee chairperson, if they don't like you, they can just kill your bill and never even discuss it. But generally in a committee, you'll have a yes or no vote. But before you get to a yes or no vote on a bill, what you have is public hearings and amendments on your bill. In other words, people testify in favor of your bill, and people testify against a bill. You also have bills that get amended. Think of an amendment as something to fix or add on to a bill. After it goes through the committee process, in the House, it goes to the House Rules Committee to determine what the rules will be for debate on the House floor. Major bills may have more debate time. The House will vote on the bill. And sometimes you'll have amendments to the bill in the House. The House votes on it. If the House votes no, the bill's dead. If the House votes yes, for this discussion, the bill moves to the Senate, where the Senate has committees. And they listen to the bill. They have public hearings and amendments and debates. The bill then goes to the Senate floor. On the Senate floor, if you don't have a filibuster, which is unlimited debate and talking, your bill will then proceed to a vote. To kill a filibuster, you need a cloture vote of 60 votes. That's why they say sometimes you need 60 votes just to get a bill passed, even though there's 100 senators. Senate and House pass a bill, but it has to be in identical form. If it is not in identical form, it has to go to a conference committee to work out the differences, and then they have another vote. The bill now goes to the president. The president has a few options. They can sign the bill, you have a fancy ceremony, everyone gets a pen and a souvenir, and the president thanks you for your hard work. The president can veto a bill, too. A regular veto, the president states why he doesn't like the bill goes back to the House and Senate for another vote. It has to get a 2/3 vote for override to pass in order to override the president's veto. If it does not get a 2/3 vote by the House and Senate, the bill's dead. The president can also do what is known as a pocket veto. If the Congress adjourns, he can just veto the bill without giving any reason why, and the bill's dead. The president can also do nothing. If the president does not sign or veto a bill within 10 days, the bill automatically becomes law over their signature. A couple of the little phrases I want to use from the textbook to discuss this aspect of legislation. One of them is called log rolling. And it's the aspect of like, you vote for my bill, I'll vote for your bill. This is common. People have used the term quid pro quo, and we've seen that in the news a lot over the last few years. But the idea behind it is you want to build support for legislation. You want sponsors of your legislation. You want people to approve your bill, to get it passed and have the president sign the bill. That's an important aspect. Bill gets passed, signed by the president, goes into law. There's still one remedy if you don't like the law. You can take it to court and have it challenged as maybe this law is really unconstitutional and not fair. And sometimes the courts have ruled laws to be unconstitutional. That's a summary of Congress and the legislative process. Congress is a powerful institution, in some ways more powerful than the presidency. And I'll talk in a little bit over the next few series about an institution that helps create Congress's power and has power over it. Not necessarily the courts, but interest groups. Take care. Have a great day.